low. We spend so much time trying to outrun our feelings, don't we? We pray for them to disappear, to dissolve overnight, to be stripped away like an old layer of skin. Because feelings, especially the ones that tie us to someone we wish we could forget, can be inconvenient, messy, even exhausting. They show up uninvited. They linger longer than they should. They catch us off guard in the quiet moments, reminding us of what we wish we didn't feel. And so we assume that if God is removing them, he must not be listening. But what if feelings aren't obstacles? What if they're actually information? We live in a world that tells us to move on, get over it, push past anything uncomfortable. We're conditioned to believe that strength means shutting down what hurts. But that's not how healing works. That's not how God works. Feelings aren't something we're supposed to reject. They are something we're meant to understand. They're the rawest form of truth we have. They are how our hearts communicate with us before our minds can make sense of things. And the truth is, feelings aren't always rational. They don't ask for permission. They don't follow logic. You can know deep down that someone isn't right for you and still feel drawn to them. You can know the relationship is over and still ache for the way it felt when it wasn't. But you can know and the relationship is over and still ache for the way it felt when it wasn't. You can make peace with the past and still feel something stir inside you when their name comes up. That doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're human. Think about Jesus in the garden before his crucifixion. He knew the plan. He knew the outcome, but he still wrestled with what was coming. He still felt it. He still wept. And if even he, perfect, divine, unshaken, could sit in the weight of his emotions, why do we think we should be exempt? Why do we believe we have to rush through what is meant to be felt? Maybe the reason God hasn't removed these feelings is because there's something in them that he wants you to see. Maybe he's not trying to take them away. Maybe he's trying to teach you through them. What if, instead of asking for them to be erased, you ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Maybe it's revealing a part of yourself that still longs to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved. Maybe it's showing you the depth of your own capacity to care. Maybe it's pointing you to wounds that need attention, healing that needs to happen from the inside out. The hardest part about feelings is that they don't come with easy answers. They aren't always clean, but they are honest. And God is never afraid of honesty. He doesn't shame us for feeling too much or for grieving too long. He isn't impatient with our hearts. He says with us in it, through it, and says, I see you, I see all of you. So if you're asking God to remove your feelings and he hasn't, maybe it's because he knows that removing them wouldn't heal you. Understanding them would. Maybe he's inviting you to trust the process, to trust that even the ache has a purpose, because feelings, no matter how unwanted they seem, are never wasted when they bring us closer to the truth. Love is complicated. It's never just about one thing. We like to think our feelings for someone are about them, who they are, what they did, the way they made us feel. We convince ourselves that if God would just remove the emotions, we could move forward, clean and untangled. But the truth is, love, attraction, and attachment don't work that way, because more often than not, these emotions are not just about them. They're about us. When we feel deeply for someone, it awakens something inside us. It stirs up memories, old wounds, buried longings. It reveals the parts of us that crave connection, belonging, and being seen. Sometimes it even forces us to confront the deeper question underneath it all. What is this person representing for me? Maybe you're still holding on, not because you can't let go of them, but because you don't know who you are without that feeling. Maybe they reminded you of a version of yourself you like, someone who was hopeful, open, alive. Maybe they gave you a sense of security or validation that you hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe they made you feel wanted in a way you didn't know you needed. And here's the hardest part. When we lose a person, we don't just grieve them. We grieve the dreams we built in our minds about what could have been. We grieve the moments that felt real and sacred, even if they were fleeting. So when you ask God, why won't you take these feelings away? It might be because there's something underneath them that needs attention. Maybe he isn't just asking you to let go of them. Maybe he's asking you to look at yourself. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to bring out something deep within us? There's a reason for that. Some people are mirrors. They reflect parts of us back to ourselves. They show us our deepest needs, our wounds, our hopes, even our insecurities. Sometimes we mistake this reflection for fate, as if our attachment to them must mean they're meant for us, but sometimes it just means they've illuminated something we need to see. And if that's true, then their presence in your life wasn't in vain. The feelings weren't a mistake, but neither are they a reason to stay tied to something or someone that is no longer meant for you. God is not in the business of removing feelings just to make things easier for us. He allows them to linger because they reveal something vital about who we are. And if we can get quiet enough, if we can stop focusing on why them and start asking why me, we might finally begin to understand the lesson in it all. Maybe this person showed you your own capacity to love, how deeply, how selflessly, how bravely you were willing to show up. And maybe the real challenge isn't erasing the feelings, but trusting that this capacity wasn't wasted, that even if they weren't the right person, the love you felt was still real, still meaningful, still a part of your story. Or maybe this person revealed a wound that still needs healing, a place where you've been seeking validation or worth in another human being instead of in the one who created you. And maybe, just maybe, the reason the feelings won't just disappear is because God is asking you to do the deeper work to find healing, not just relief. Feelings are never just about the other person. They are a window into ourselves. And sometimes God leaves them there a little longer, not to torture us, but to teach us. To remind us that love was never about losing ourselves in someone else. It was always about finding more of who He created us to be. Discomfort is something we all try to avoid. It's human nature. The moment we feel something painful, grief, longing, heartache, we want to fix it, erase it, or numb it. We assume that if something hurts, it must be wrong. So when we find ourselves stuck in feelings we wish would go away, we think, God, why are you letting me sit in this? Why won't you just take it away? But what if the discomfort isn't meant to break you? What if it's meant to grow you? We don't like to hear this, but growth and discomfort go hand in hand. There is no transformation without tension, no healing without confrontation, no deep wisdom without deep wounds. And sometimes God allows us to sit in our emotions because there's something in the pain that we need to learn, something we can't see when we're trying so hard to run away from it. We live in a culture that praises quick fixes. We want the 5-step plan to healing, the overnight miracle, the instant relief. But that's not how God works. That's not how the heart works. Healing is not a straight line. It's a process. It's messy. It's unpredictable. And the more we try to rush it, the more we resist the very thing that could set us free. Think about it. If God removed every painful feeling the moment it arose, we would never learn resilience. We would never learn patience. We would never learn how to sit with ourselves long enough to ask, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Because emotions aren't just random. They are signals. They are messengers. And even the ones we don't want to feel, loneliness, sadness, longing, carry wisdom. When you sit in your discomfort, you begin to notice things. You start to see the pattern. You start to recognize the places where you've been searching for love outside of yourself, instead of allowing God to meet you in the deepest places of your heart. Maybe this isn't just about letting go of someone. Maybe it's about letting go of an identity you tied to them. Maybe it's about learning that your worth was never meant to be measured by how much someone else wanted you. Maybe it's about realizing that the love you thought you lost was never your only source of love to begin with. But you can't learn any of that if you keep trying to escape the discomfort. You can't grow if you won't sit in the process long enough to see what is shaping you into. Imagine a seed buried in the ground. It's covered in darkness. It's pressed down by soil. It stays there unseen for a long time before anything changes. And if you didn't know better, you might think that nothing was happening at all. But beneath the surface, transformation is taking place. Roots are forming, growth is beginning, and one day when the time is right, that seed will break through the surface into something completely new. That's what discomfort does. It presses us. Yes, it buries us in feelings we don't want to sit with, but if we allow it, it also grows us. It changes us. It strengthens us in ways we never expected. So maybe instead of asking God to take away the feelings, the better question is, what are you trying to show me through them? Maybe this pain isn't meant to be avoided. Maybe it's meant to be felt, not forever, not as a punishment, but as a path to something deeper, something more whole, more healed, more you. The feelings will pass, but what you learn from them, what you gain from this process, that will stay with you forever. And maybe that's the real gift in all of this, not the removal of pain, but the growth that comes from walking through it. Letting go is one of the hardest things we'll ever have to do, not just because we miss the person, but because we expect it to happen all at once. We think that if we make the decision to move on, our feelings will follow immediately. That if we pray hard enough, work hard enough, or distract ourselves long enough, the emotions will vanish overnight. And when they don't, when we still feel that pull, that ache, that lingering connection, we start to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why is this taking so long? But the truth is, letting go is not an on-off switch. It's not a single decision. It's a series of decisions made over and over again, sometimes 100 times a day. It's waking up in the morning and choosing again not to let your thoughts spiral. It's feeling the familiar longing creep in and reminding yourself again why you had to walk away. It's hearing their name, seeing something that reminds you of them, and taking a deep breath again, because even though it still stings, you're slowly finding your way forward. The process of letting go is layered. It doesn't happen in one clean motion. Some days it feels like progress, like you finally turned a corner, like you're standing in the light again. Other days it feels like you're back at square one, like no time has passed at all, like the weight of it is just as heavy as it was in the beginning. And that's okay. That's how healing works. Think about a wound on your body. It doesn't just heal overnight. First it bleeds, then it scabs over, then slowly the new skin starts to form. And even after it looks healed, it's still tender. You press on it and you remember, but over time that tenderness fades, and what once felt raw and unbearable becomes just another part of you. That's what's happening inside you. You're healing, even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when you think you're stuck, every time you choose not to reach out, every time you remind yourself why this chapter had to end, every time you lean into God instead of into nostalgia, that's progress. That's a step forward. But here's the thing. We don't like the in-between. We don't like the part where we still feel something but can't act on it. We want to be either in love or completely over it, and we don't know what to do with the space in between. But that space, the waiting, the processing, the slow unraveling of what once was, is where real healing happens. Sometimes we pray for God to take away our feelings because we don't want to go through the process. We don't want to sit in the discomfort of still caring for someone we can't have. We don't want to deal with the quiet moments where we miss them but know we can't go back. But God doesn't rush the process just because we're uncomfortable. He knows that real healing isn't about forgetting, it's about transforming. Letting go isn't just about losing the attachment. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about learning how to stand on your own again, how to find joy in places outside of them, how to love yourself in ways you were hoping they would. It's about trusting that just because they were part of your story doesn't mean they were meant to be your whole story. So if you're frustrated with yourself, if you're wondering why you're not over it yet, take a deep breath. You are not failing. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are just in the middle of the process. And the middle is messy. The middle is hard, but the middle is also where the magic happens. One day you will wake up and realize that the feelings that once consumed you no longer have the same power. One day you will see their name and feel nothing but peace. One day you will look back and understand why God didn't take the feelings away immediately, because he was using them to teach you something, to shape you, to strengthen you. And when that day comes, you won't just be free from the feelings, you'll be free from the belief that you ever needed someone else to complete you in the first place, because the real work of letting go isn't about them. It's about you. And you are worth the time it takes to heal. Painful feelings have a way of making us feel like something is wrong, like we're stuck, like we're failing at moving on. We assume that if God hasn't removed them, he must be punishing us. Or maybe, just maybe, we're not praying hard enough, not strong enough, not faithful enough to just let it go already. But what if the presence of these feelings isn't a sign of weakness? What if they are not evidence that something is wrong, but rather proof that something inside you is still working? God doesn't waste anything, not even pain. If he's allowing you to feel something deeply, there is a reason. It doesn't mean you were meant to stay in the past. It doesn't mean you're supposed to keep holding on. But it does mean there is something in this moment, in this season, that he wants to use for your growth. Sometimes we pray for God to take away feelings simply because we don't want to deal with them. We want them gone because they are uncomfortable, because they make us feel weak and vulnerable, because they remind us of something we lost. But feelings, especially the painful ones, carry wisdom. They show us where we've been, what we've loved, what we've lost, and what still needs healing inside of us. Think about it. You wouldn't feel this deeply if this experience, this person, this connection hadn't mattered to you. And that in itself is meaningful. It means you were open. It means you were willing to risk your heart. It means you had the capacity to love, to care, to hope. And even though the situation may not have turned out the way you wanted, the feelings themselves are proof of something sacred. Your ability to feel deeply, even when it hurts. But more than that, feelings that linger often point to something within ourselves that needs attention. Maybe you're not just grieving the person, you're grieving what they represented. Maybe you're not just missing them, you're missing the version of yourself that you were when you were with them. Maybe you're not just longing for love, you're longing for a kind of safety, a kind of belonging that you haven't yet learned to give to yourself. And that is why God isn't rushing this process, because he isn't just interested in making you feel better. He's interested in making you whole. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning from it. It's about sitting with the feelings instead of running from them and asking, what are you trying to teach me? Maybe the answer is that you still have some healing to do. Maybe the answer is that you need to love yourself the way you were hoping they would. Maybe the answer is that you're stronger than you thought, braver than you knew, and more capable of growth than you ever imagined. But you won't learn any of that if you spend all your energy trying to shut off your emotions instead of listening to them. The truth is, we don't heal by forcing feelings away. We heal by allowing them to come, by sitting with them long enough to understand them, and by trusting that in time they will loosen their grip, because they will. One day, what feels overwhelming now will feel like a distant memory. One day, you will wake up and realize the weight has lifted. One day, you will look back and understand that God wasn't being silent. He was working on something deeper than just removing your emotions. He was rebuilding you. So if you're still feeling something, don't shame yourself for it. Don't assume that just because it still hurts, you're doing something wrong. You are not behind. You are not weak. You are just in the middle of something sacred, something necessary. And if God is letting you feel it, then it means there is purpose in it. Let yourself learn from it. Let yourself grow through it, and trust that one day when the lesson has been learned, when the healing has taken place, when you are ready, you will wake up and those feelings will no longer have power over you. And you will realize with certainty that they were never meant to break you. They were meant to build you.